Hello, my name is Just Three Possums. As you probably just saw in the title card, here on my channel, I like to talk about pretty much whatever pops into my head, and I'm really excited to get into today's topic. So I actually already filmed a video previously about the same thing, but looking back at it, I thought to myself that I could definitely do better, and so this is going to be my attempt at better. Also, I'm trying something new. This is my face. That's not something that I had previously, obviously. So I'm just curious to see how this goes and if I enjoy making it as much when I am the one being filmed. So without further ado, let's start. So, like I said, I already filmed a video on this very same topic. And that topic is Mobile Suit Gundam and how much I absolutely love the series. So, the reason that I thought I could do better is because I kind of just gave an overview and a look at the series as a whole, and the themes of it. I didn't really get a chance to focus in as much as I think I could have. So, that is what I want to do. This might take multiple parts. I have to see. It's definitely going to be a longer one, where I want to zero in on the first 3 original installments in the series and talk about what makes them work so well and how the themes are translated on screen. So, to start off, obviously, I want to do a brief history lesson of how Mobile Suit Gundam came to be, when it was conceptualized, when it first aired, and just kind of the thought process behind it. I am really throwing the continuity off here. I got cold, so I put on a sweater, and I had to put on my glasses so that I could read the little script that I have on the side, and then I also made coffee. So, anyways, I'm back. Where was I? Right, the brief history lesson. So, Mobile Suit Gundam was written by Yoshiyuki Tomino. We will talk more about him in a minute, but I want to get the brief overview done first and then go into the writer himself. Now, Gundam, like other works by Tomino, is known for its large cast of characters, most of whom end up being killed off by the end of the series. This large cast and them being killed off goes for both the protagonist and antagonist, and I would argue that it's really hard to even label protagonist and antagonist because there's a lot of ambiguity there, which I am about to talk about a little bit more. There is also a heavy emphasis on humanizing both sides of the conflict. If you don't know, which is weird that you're watching this video if you have no understanding of Gundam at all, the series revolves around the use of mecha or giant robots in war, so that's kind of what it's about. Anyways, now, at the core of the series is the theme that war is hell. That is something that I will be repeating throughout this video, because that is the very reason for its creation, is to depict how war is hell. War is hell, and there are ordinary people caught up on both sides of conflicts. And the humans on both sides, not the ideologies necessarily, but the people within it on both sides, are not necessarily specifically evil nor good. There's a lot of moral ambiguity there for the specific people, or at least characters, involved in the series. I would also argue that there is some commentary about machine warfare and its ability to allow those fighting to dehumanize the other side, although that is just my opinion. I don't think it's ever been explicitly stated, but it is something that I want to talk about because it is an interesting point. Like I said, we were going to circle back to the writer, Tomino, and that is what we are doing now. So, Tomino obviously is a Japanese anime director. He's also a screenwriter, a songwriter, and a novelist. He's best known for creating Gundam, although he does have plenty of other works out there. He's kind of a strange little man, but I say that in a loving way. Like, I don't mean that in a bad way. Just like in interviews and stuff, especially about specifically the plot of the show and stuff, he's a weird little guy, but not in a bad way. Tomino was born on November 5th of 1941, so being born in 1941, he has some memories of World War II, and I think that this very heavily influenced not just his own personal views on war, but the plot of Gundam and how he wanted to use it and the kind of messaging he wanted within it. I found an interview actually where he spoke about his memories around World War II. The one that stuck out to me the most, specifically because of the very beginning plot of the first Gundam series, is that Tomino remembers escaping to an air raid shelter with 2 or 3 picture books in his hand when he was around 3 years old. His home happened to be the furthest from that shelter, and by the time he got there, the only space was near the entrance, and he remembers that the entrance was only protected by woven rush mats, which would flutter in the breeze. I will be talking more about the influences of World War II. God, I couldn't speak for a second. In Mobile Suit Gundam as the video goes on, but I do think that his own personal experience with war heavily influenced what he went on to do with the series. His goal with this series, according to him, and this is a quote, "The bottom line is I wanted to have a more realistic robot series. Unlike a super robot where everything is more reality-based on a humanoid robot. Right from the beginning, the roots of Mobile Suit came from the worker robots that were building the space colonies back then, and they would become more technologically advanced to the point of becoming a weapon, and that was the whole lineage of the robots I had in mind since the beginning. So the whole idea, my idea of trying to have a robot series in space without it becoming a stupid story was based on wanting to make a story and surrounding it with reality. More realistic possibilities was the underlying concept." End quote. See, that's that quote and the way that he talks and explains things. This is what I mean when I say that he's a strange little man. That's like, it's a strange little man thing to say, at least in that format. But basically, his goal was to create a robot series grounded in reality, as much as a robot series can be. That is actually something that's accomplished really well and that I love throughout the series is the extensive world building. The idea of space colonies is actually based off of a legitimate idea. I forget who made it, but it's a feasible thing where it is possible to have the space colonies orbiting Earth. And I think the fact that having those space colonies is so grounded in reality really helps with the world building because you can really conceptualize it. It's not particularly hard to believe. You don't have to suspend your disbelief as much as you would in other series. I also really like asking questions, and the world building is so extensive that any question you have either has been directly answered by the series or you can make a pretty good educated guess about, which is wonderful if, like me, you struggle to suspend disbelief. Now, another quote that I wanted to include here is about the overall messaging of Gundam and why I say that it is the theme is war is hell, and that's pretty explicitly stated multiple times by Tomino. This is one of those times that I was able to find online. Quote, "There's nothing cool about it," meaning war. "After all, war must not happen. However, unfortunately, we will never be rid of war thanks to the delusions of those who yearn for it." Okay, so now let's go into the brief origins of the first installment of the series airing, as well as the premise for the original. So, the first one aired between 1979 and 1980. It was not very popular at the start, and as a result, it ended up getting canceled, and the original ending was condensed and shortened, which honestly you can really see in it. You can kind of tell watching it that there was probably supposed to be more there, but shit happens. It's okay. It's still good. The premise of the original first installment of the series, simply titled Mobile Suit Gundam, is that it's the year Universal Century 0079. Humans now live in things called space colonies. A group of space colonies declare war on the Earth Federation under the guidance of the Principality of Zeon. In one of these colonies, the Earth Federation is storing and testing a new piloted robot for use in battle. This robot is the RX-78, and it is forced into combat with a civilian pilot, and a highly, if at all, experienced crew ends up being aboard a military ship called White Base. Now, my idea for what I want to do with not just the rest of this video, but possibly the multiple videos that'll come after it, because like I said, this could very well end up having to be a multi-part thing, is I want to go back and watch each episode of the first 3 series, pick some of my favorites, say how they contribute to the theme, and give them a rating so that by the end of this video / series of videos, we will have my all-time favorite #1 episode within the first 3 original series. So that is the plan with this. Guess who's throwing off the continuity again? It's another day. I got tired yesterday, so I am back in a completely different outfit again, and I got my nails done. They're little clowns. Look at how cute they are. I love them. Anyways, that's not the point. We are here now to talk about my favorite episodes from the original Mobile Suit Gundam series and how they contribute to the theme. So, I want to start out, and this is going to go through all of the episodes / series that I review. I want to start out with giving a brief synopsis of the very first episode and how it establishes the themes. So, without further ado, let's get into episode 1 of Mobile Suit Gundam, titled Gundam Rising. I think I misspoke earlier and said the wrong date for when this first aired. It was from 1979 to 1980, but I think for some reason I said 1949, and I don't know why that came out, but that was wrong, so now you have the right year. Anyways, so episode 1 introduces us to the colony Side 7, where the Earth Federation is secretly developing new mobile suits. Zeon sends a recon team led by Char Aznable to investigate and destroy the project. Char is the main antagonist and also the reason why I am wearing an all red outfit. If you didn't get that reference, I'm not sure how much the red shows up on camera. But yeah, anyways, amidst the attack, a teenage civilian named Amuro Ray stumbles upon the Gundam and, out of desperation, pilots it to defend his home. The episode ends with massive destruction, civilian casualties, and Amuro forced into the role of a soldier aboard a warship called White Base. Now, this establishes the theme by, one, highlighting civilian casualties. The Zeon assault turns a peaceful colony into a battlefield, killing innocent people, including friends and neighbors of our main characters, within minutes. One of our other protagonists, Frau Bo, actually loses her entire family in this attack. There's one scene that, for being an anime more geared towards, like, not necessarily teenagers, but like preteens, or at least that's who ended up watching it, is somewhat gruesome, where we see a missile kill her family, and she runs up to the corpse of her mom, kneels beside her, and is screaming for her to get up and yelling her name. This episode also establishes the presence of child soldiers. At the very beginning of episode 1, Amuro's father is talking to Captain Bright, who's not yet the captain of the ship yet, and mentions how Bright is just a kid, which, being a literal child watching it, I didn't think that was true because Bright was 19, but being 18, just a year younger than Captain Bright is, that is really young. And Amuro's father also mentions that there are people even younger than Bright fighting in guerrilla warfare for the Earth Federation, and how he has a very difficult time justifying that, and also the work that he does for the government, because obviously child soldiers aren't a good thing. Now, Amuro's dad ends up dying, so we don't really talk about him again, but Amuro, along with several other people who end up fighting on White Base, are just that. They're teenagers with absolutely no military training who are thrust into combat as a result of this mass destruction. It acts as a depiction of how war exploits the young and vulnerable. I also think that, I'm not entirely sure that this could apply to Japan, but in America, the military often kind of goes for very vulnerable teenagers, trying to recruit them at a very young age, especially when they are impoverished or a minority, because the military in the US will pay for college, and despite the fact that college is not free, it is a kind of a necessary thing in order to get a job here. So not just war, but the military complex as a whole does kind of run off of the exploitation of young people. There is also the mention of indiscriminate violence throughout the series, and it all starts in episode 1. The chaos is immediate and relentless. Homes are destroyed, families are torn apart, and the line between combatants and civilians is completely ignored. This episode also establishes moral ambiguity. Neither side is painted as purely good nor evil. The violence is senseless and tragic from all directions. While Zeon did attack inside a colony, and they do a lot of mass killing of civilians, the Earth Federation also does the same thing, and they also have children fighting for them. Neither is an ethical side, because they both do immoral acts. There is no black and white, this side is good and this side is bad, which I think is a really interesting thing to have throughout a show. Okay, the lighting is different. I'm trying to figure out where to put my light without blinding myself, so this seems to be working. Anyways, now it is time for my top 2 episodes of the original series. So, number 1 is the episode Across the Atlantic Ocean, which is episode 28. This follows the White Base crew as they travel across Earth toward Jaboro, the Federation's South American headquarters. Along the way, they encounter the Zeon pilot Kakuruz Doan and his abandoned island, where he has been protecting war orphans after deserting his post. Amuro is sent to investigate the island, but is deeply affected when he discovers discovers Doan's choice to reject violence and shield the children. Although he is a former Zeon soldier, he refuses to fight, choosing instead to live in exile and raise the children he inadvertently orphaned. This helps to further the theme as we see deserter's guilt, with Doan representing a soldier who has been broken by the horrors that he has himself inflicted. His guilt manifests in a need to care for the very victims of his actions. We have the themes of loss of innocence lost. The presence of war orphans highlights the devastating impact and conflict on the most vulnerable, which are children. We also see this with the 3 very young children who are aboard the White Base as they escaped Side 7. And how all of these children, despite now hiding, are still surrounded by the remnants of violence and the destruction that war has brought upon them. This also establishes kind of an awakening within Amuro, where for the first time he sees the human cost of war beyond the battlefield. It's obvious to him and just about everyone that war kills people who are fighting, and it affects the families of those fighting, but war also kills people who just happen to live in the area, who are at the wrong place at the wrong time. It affects their families because they are now surrounded by the destruction that fighting brings. Seeing this is challenging to Amuro, and it kind of challenges his growing desensitization and deepens his internal conflict as now a soldier. There is, again, this moral complexity. This really highlights how the enemy is not always evil. Doan is a Zeon deserter, yet he becomes a symbol of conscience and resistance to senseless violence. And then
Okay, for the last little bit of this video, you are getting a voiceover because I don't feel good and I don't feel like getting all dressed up, and I was busy, so I didn't have time to film it all in the same day. So, just deal with it. If you're here on a channel with, 2 subscribers, you're not really expecting professional quality, so it is what it is. Anyways, to finish off this video, I want to go into my second top episode from the original Gundam series, which is episode 41, A Cosmic Glow. This episode depicts the Battle of Solomon, which is a massive Earth Federation assault on a major Zeon space fortress. The White Base takes part in the intense, large-scale offensive. As the Federation pushes forward, Zeon forces, including Commander Dozle, Zabi, fiercely defend the base. Dozle eventually fights himself, and he does that until the very end. Despite overwhelming firepower, he is killed by Amuro and the Gundam. There's a final moment where Dozle is mortally wounded, and we see him, despite this, continue to fight. And the reason that I chose this one for my last top one, as it relates to the theme, is because it kind of gets everything that makes it so horrifying to see people at war, that makes war such hell. So we have mass slaughter. Again, this is a continuous thing throughout the series, but the battle is a spectacle of destruction with countless lives lost on both sides in a matter of minutes. The scale of death is staggering and rather impersonal. There's the tragic humanity of the enemy. Dozle, often seen as a brutal enemy, is revealed to be fighting for his family. His final moments reflect desperation and a distorted sense of duty and justice. So it kind of, again, goes into that moral ambiguity, showing that the humans on both sides are just that. They're humans. They're imperfect. They are not evil nor good. We have this idea that there is no glory in death. When we see everyone fighting, it is terrifying. Death strips away any illusion of heroism, portraying war as a descent into madness and ruin rather than just an adventure or a chance for victory. We also get to see a psychological toll be put on the crew of the White Base. So Amuro and the rest of the White Base crew are visibly shaken by the carnage, underscoring that even with quote-unquote victory, there's a great emotional cost, and you can never really win in warfare. There is no winning a war because both sides are full of devastation. It's not necessarily about what you gain, but how history talks about you. And that concludes this video. Like I said, it was a little bit longer. I think this is going to be around 20 minutes, maybe over. Yeah, so then the next video, I will be going over Mobile Suit Gundam, my tops from that. I'm also thinking about, I didn't do it for this one because it's hard for me to pick like a favorite character from the very original, but I'm thinking about doing like a character roundup and rating the main characters from my most favorite to least favorite, and then giving my all-time favorite character from those series. So if you think that might be interesting, feel free to tune in whenever I get around to it.